I guess since this is the hot topic on everybody's mind right now, Erika Jayne and her divorce to Tom Girardi. So apparently they had a very unconventional marriage. And by unconventional, in the digging that I did do, unconventional really just meaning they led separate lives, which I kind of understand. I think, like I said last week, I think she was, a partner to Tom. I think she really loved and adored him in the marriage early on. I think he did a lot for her and her son. I think she's very grateful for the life that he was able to afford her, but her life now has changed so much that she doesn't need Tom the way that she needed him before, financially or emotionally. And I think you can kind of see that he wasn't really there for her emotionally. The fact that he didn't show up to see her in Chicago, which is a huge milestone for her. Your husband should be there opening night. He shouldn't be there just closing night. Like opening night and maybe a couple of other shows. Like any time you get a chance to go, like bring some of your friends, make it a thing with, some of your colleagues. Like I just to me, if my husband didn't show up to something that was so important to me, which we saw in the show, how emotional she got over this milestone that she reached, that to me was a little, I can understand where there was a division in their relationship. Apparently, they travel separately. They really just lived separate lives, and their marriage had been over for kind of a minute. So I don't think this came as much of a shock to Tom. I think he was probably just feeling lucky that he kept her around. I know for me, I thought that she was really, after 20 years, I thought she was just going to stick it out and be like, all right, let's ride it till the end. We now know she doesn't have a prenup. So I don't know if she's really going to take his money. I think he gave her so much, and she seems like a humble enough person that she wouldn't ask for much. And she doesn't need much from him. She makes her own money. She has her own opportunities. I mean, she may be thinking forward and being like, maybe I need some cash in case this housewife gig does come to an end at some point, which it will. But I can understand how after letting it kind of digest, I'm not shocked by this at all. I think she was just in such a different place. Now, there were some rumors that so we saw Gleb, who was one of the pro dancers on Dancing with the Stars, who was Erika's partner a couple seasons ago. We saw that his wife has come out and accused him of having an affair with Chrishell, who is on the Netflix reality show. Shit, what's the name of it? I completely forgot. But she was the one that was married to Justin Hartley, who was on This Is Us, and that was a whole scandal because apparently he cheated on her, and she was like, oh. And it was like on the most recent season, we saw their marriage kind of fall apart. So she was on the most recent season of Dancing with the Stars with Gleb, and apparently there are accusations that they were having a bit of an affair. And then there was a photo that was circulating on social media of Erika hugging Gleb, and everyone was like, oh, were they having a thing? Because his wife said that he had multiple affairs and he had cheated on her several times. Well, there was another source that came out and said that he apparently had it. I can confirm that he did not have an affair with Erika Jayne. They did not hook up together, but apparently there were two other, according to Demois, I think that's how you say it. It's not Des Moines. I think it's Demois. The Instagram account Demois, somebody spilled a little tea saying that it wasn't Erika Jayne, but there were two other women that he did have an affair with that were his partners on the show. And so I pulled up all of his partners, and we'll go through them in a minute. But so apparently he has an apartment that's close to the studio where they would rehearse for Dancing with the Stars, and he would kind of stay there because it was closer than where they lived. So it was away from his family, and that was kind of like his hookup pad. And so the wife, ended up coming to the apartment one day and catching him, and it was like a whole drama because she caught him actually sleeping with somebody. It hasn't been confirmed that it was Chrishell. I don't know if I believe that he actually did hook up with Chrishell. I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. I actually think they would make a nice couple. I don't like that he cheated on his wife and that he has kids, and that's gross. But so let's go through his partners, and then we'll get into the Erika Jayne piece of it, because I know, we're focusing on Erika Jayne, but I want to quickly go through all of his previous partners. So first up, he had Lisa Vanderpump, who was married, Jana Kramer, who was married, Erika, who was a country star, Erika Jayne, who was married, Sasha Pierce from Pretty Little Liars, who was married. There was an athlete, oh God, I'm probably going to botch this name, Ariki, Agun Bawali. I'm not into sports. I'm sorry, I'm botching her name, but she was on the show. She apparently finished in 7th. She was single. There was Nikki Glazer, single, who's a comedian. She's known for like the Comedy Central roasts, and she has, I think, a radio show at Sirius XM. So there's Lauren Elena, who was a former winner of, or no, she wasn't a winner. She was a finalist for American Idol years and years ago, back when I actually still watched the fucking show. I remember Lauren Elena, who's now just a country star. She's single. And then there was Chrishell, who was his most recent partner. So according to the source, there were 2 people that he hooked up with. One of them was married and in a train, they called it a train wreck marriage. Let me see if I can pull up the screenshot. So I can actually... Okay, so one of them was already in a fucked up marriage that continues to be messed up to this day, and the other one was a screwed up socialite who everyone knows but probably forgot was ever on the show. Okay, so now of the people that are married, we have Lisa Vanderpump, Erika Jayne, Jana Kramer, and Sasha Peterson. So it has to be one of the 4. We know it's not Erika Jayne. So we know it probably wasn't Lisa Vanderpump. So the only other 2 options are Jana Kramer and Sasha Peterson. I don't think Sasha Peterson has what we know to be a fucked up marriage. Her marriage is relatively new. I think she just got married in like 2018. Jana Kramer is the only other one that was married at the time that she was filming Dancing with the Stars and was partnered with Gleb. So I'm assuming that they're referring to Jana Kramer as the person that Gleb had an affair with. I don't know much about Jana Kramer's, period, nor do I know much about her marriage. But I mean, if anybody has any insight, please spill that tea. Now, the other person is single and apparently a socialite that who everyone knows but probably forgot was ever on the show. So now this brings us to, I don't think it was Erika, I don't know, the athlete girl. A woman. I don't think it was her. So the only other options are Nikki Glazer, Lauren Elena, and Chrishell. I don't think this person was referring to Chrishell. Oh, unless Chrishell is the one that was married and was in a fucked up relationship that everyone knows was in a fucked up relationship and is still fucked up to this day, but it's not fucked up anymore because they're donezos. So I don't think it was Chrishell. I think Chrishell and Erika Jayne can be wiped off of this table. So the only other 2 quote unquote socialites that it could have been, because it didn't say, the source didn't say that it was another Dancing with the Stars contestant. They said that these were actual partners of Gleb. So it has to be of the people on this list. So it's either Nikki Glazer or Lauren Elena. I could see Nikki Glazer going for it, and I would be all for it if Nikki Glazer wanted to hit that. Lauren Elena, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Lauren Elena either. I think they both could fit. I don't know if I would call either of them socialites, though. I mean, Nikki's a comedian. She's been around for a minute. And then Lauren Elena is a country star from American Idol. It could be one of the 2. But so basically it's either, so he likely hooked up with Jana Kramer and Nikki Glazer or Lauren Elena. So those are the 3 people that he probably had an affair with. Definitely didn't happen with Erika Jayne, possibly with Chrishell. So, I mean, that's quite a lot of people that he's been, putting himself into. Like, I'm surprised he didn't pop up with any other babies. But apparently they're all rolling into his little apartment down in LA, taking breaks from Dancing with the Stars. It was probably like he's like, I can help you do some additional stretches after rehearsal, and then Lauren Elena's like, okay, yeah, help me do some additional stretches, and then he's like, okay, let me show you the downward dog, and she's like, oh really? I like the happy baby. Okay, so let's get into Erika Jayne. Now that we know that we've narrowed it down, hopefully somebody can help me dig up some more dirt and we can kind of narrow the scope a bit. But apparently he's been doing this for a while. His wife, who's soon to be his ex-wife, says that this is something he's been doing for a minute. Okay, now Erika Jayne is not sleeping with Gleb, but we have a news source that claims that she had a little fling-a-ding-ding with Mr. Scooter Braun. Scooter Braun is Justin Bieber's manager who was recently in a big feud with Taylor Swift over her music, and Taylor Swift gets tied into all of this in a minute, so stay tuned. So apparently Scooter and Erika met a little while back, and they allegedly met at some sex club here in Los Angeles, which I know sounds like a made-up story. Like, Erika Jayne and Scooter Braun walk into a sex club in LA, and everyone's like, but Scooter Braun's like, he loves Jesus, and Erika Jayne, loves to say the CUNT word. I don't know if YouTube or iTunes might block me for saying that. But so they apparently met at a sex club, and I get it. It sounds like a made-up story, but if you dig a little deeper, a couple of sources have come out and kind of confirmed this, that Scooter Braun does step out of his marriage, or that has like a no commitment, no strings attached sort of rule where he can kind of dip out. And so this was this kind of really came to light because Dana Wilkie, who is a friend of on season 2 of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, she shared a screenshot of some DMs that really kind of put it out there. People were saying that Dana was the one making these claims. Dana did not make the claims. She just shared them on Instagram, which kind of then I don't think Dana really knows Erika Jayne or Scooter Braun all that well, but Dana got the information and then posted it and was like, ooh, this is juicy. This is some tea. So apparently it's known within like their small network or community that Scooter Braun does enjoy the frequent underground LA sex clubs, and that he does kind of, enjoy to put his little ding-a-ling-ding into other little lady parts. And so people then went and looked at Taylor Swift's new album, and she has a song on her album called Mad Woman, where it kind of, when I just listened to the song back and was reading the lyrics, and it does kind of sound like she was calling Scooter Braun out. Like if without knowing the Erika Jayne tie-in to this piece, if I had just listened to the song, I would have been like, oh, yeah, this is totally a Taylor Swift song about Scooter Braun, because it was so soon after the whole fallout with the two of them. And she basically describes like a man that's very power hungry, that like tries to dismiss her as crazy, and all that does is make her more crazy. And so she's a mad woman. And then she talks about how he is like the master of spin, and he loves to spin things in the media, and which we've seen Scooter Braun try to do, and turn people against her and again make her look crazy. And he apparently steps out on his wife, and his wife knows that he's stepping out, but she's a good wife, and she's just, going to turn the other cheek and be like, I don't know, don't ask, don't tell, that's the rule. And so apparently the wife knows that he he likes to dip his schlong in the fondue pot. And apparently Erika Jayne is one of the people that he's, bang-a-lang-danging with. Which, I mean, I don't know if I feel like Scooter Braun, really? But then some people were saying, he has a lot of connections in the music industry, that if she's really looking to pursue that. Like, I agree the story is a bit of a stretch, but there are elements of it that I think do kind of would make sense. Should it actually be true? It's not Gleb, but because nobody's actually come out and said it's definitely not Scooter, but we have sources that have come out and saying that no, it wasn't Gleb, and Gleb actually, she wasn't willing to hit it. I personally would probably rather hit it with Gleb than Scooter, but that's just me. I mean, maybe Scooter can hook it up with the Biebs. Actually, I don't like the Biebs lately. His hair and everything just isn't a cute vibe. He can stay with Hailey Bieber. I'm good.